Welcome to Secrets of Shred Guitar. I'm Dave Celentano. In this DVD we're going to explore some of the elements in shred guitar playing, like alternate picking, sweep picking, two-hand tapping, and legato style. Through a series of melodic exercises we're going to explore each one particularly, and I'm going to break it down for you real slow, and we'll talk about a good way to practice with small little chunks of music or small little pieces of music at a time. Before we get started though, let's tune up. Good way to practice is to break pieces of music, especially long pieces of music, down into small little chunks. I call them micro exercises. So for this first example, I'm going to play it for you first, and then I'm going to break it down for you in small little chunks and show you how one way you could possibly practice it. Okay, so let's go and take a listen to example 1. So in that exercise, for example, we could break down the first section into a 4-note little exercise like this. And on the picking end, we want to alternate pick, so we're starting with a down followed by an up, down, up. And just work on that little chunk and get that nice and comfortable. What I like to do too is do it slow, or half speed, and then double speed it. So, then add a little bit more to it. The next part of the lick is this. So we'll throw that together and repeat that. And then again, do it at half speed and then at full speed. Okay, moving on to the next part, we've got another lick that's like this. And again, that one slowly and then fast. I like to call those little speed bursts too, where you play a couple times slowly and then a little bit faster, or twice as fast on the second half. So what you got is this. Up to that point, then you got a series of ascending 6-note ascending lines like this. And again, if we can practice that slowly, you got this. With the speed burst too. Moving on to the next one. Next one, this one's tricky because we got to switch finger patterns. We were using fingers 1, 3, and 4 on the pair of strings, and then 1, 2, and 4 on the next for the next lick on the same pair of strings. On the third and second strings, however, we're using fingers 1, 2, and 4, followed by 1, 3, and 4. So that could be a little more challenging since you have to switch fingering on the fly. Let's try that again. Here we go. And then the next one's back to a comfortable, similar pattern. Okay, now we got this so far. It's always nice to work on a chunk of the lick and then back up and try to assemble what you've got so far before you try to play the whole entire lick. So this is what we got slowly. then the final part of the lick is cool, and it's a little bit tricky, a little slight. It's up here on the 12th fret area, and slowly it's this. Then we're adding some tapping ideas, tapping with the middle finger and the pinky finger of the right hand on the 19th and 22nd fret of the first string. Oops. So the idea is like this. And then coming back down, I hammer on the 4th finger on the 2nd string, 15th fret. Call that a hammer-on from nowhere. I don't actually pick that note, and it kind of evens out the tone of the lick. It makes it sound a little smoother. So we got this coming in, the hammer-on with a couple pull-offs, and then back up. So the first part of that last lick is, then the second half is the hammer-on from nowhere. Kind of a similar idea there. So altogether the last section is, and fully it's, altogether the whole lick assembled slowly is this. Before we explore the next exercises, I'm going to show you a classical chord progression that Paganini, Bach, and several other composers have used at different times in their compositions. I discovered it particularly in the 24th Caprice from Paganini, and it's a great little set of chords, and it goes like this. It starts with an A minor to E7. Basically, you play those each chord for 2 beats or 4 beats, depending on how many, what your piece of music is. I'll explain a little bit more of that as we do the exercises that we're going to play the leads over, or the leads with in a few minutes. The next section of the chord progression goes like this. A to D minor, to G major, C major, F major, B diminished, E7, and then A minor. So all together, the thing sounds like this. Version too you could possibly do. You can speed those chords up, do them as power chords, and come up with some faster ways or heavier ways of doing them. But this is just another way you could try it. How about this? You might want to record those chords yourself, have a friend play them on guitar, and then the rest of the exercises on this DVD can be played over those. And we'll talk more about that in a few seconds. So let's go ahead and move on to the next example. as the next example, those ideas I played outline the same chords I played for you a few seconds ago. The first thing I want to do with you, though, is break it down, show you how to practice something that's that long, learn it in little chunks. So what I would do is learn it in 4-note sections on this particular one. The first 4 notes go like this, and actually each note in the exercise is plucked twice, so I'm calling one note with something that you would actually play twice. So we're going like this on the first set of notes. That outlines the A minor chord. Those are just notes in the chord, so we're playing arpeggio style right here. The second idea outlines the E7 with the notes of the E7 chord. Then the third section, or third measure, outlines the A minor again. And then the fourth measure outlines the E7 again. So a good way to practice those little chunks like that. You can also try to practice them slowly and then fast, or 8th notes and 16th notes, maybe like this. And then try the next measure just the same way. Next measure, same manner. And the fourth measure could be the same way. And you continue on with the whole exercise in that manner, just breaking down, learning 4 notes at a time until you assemble the pieces. So here's the whole thing real slow for you. Okay, for this next example, we're going to explore legato style. Legato style is where you're not going to pick many notes, but rather do hammer-ons, pull-offs. Other things could come into the legato style too, elements like tapping and slides. But in this particular exercise, we're going to use hammer-ons and pull-offs with the left hand, and rarely picking a note. In fact, we'll talk about that in a sec, but the focus here is to get a liquidy, smooth transition between the notes. So in other words, each note connects or touches the next note, and there's no gaps or silence between the notes, which sometimes happens if we're picking notes. There might be a little tiny spaces between the notes. That would be more or less called the staccato style. But for legato, though, we want to create a real smooth, liquidy sound, so that's what this next example is going to kind of focus on. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so for that example, we're doing a legato style like I mentioned. Here's what we want to do. Break it down real slow. We'll just take a look at the first 6 notes, and that'll set up your sequence for the rest of the lick. The first 6 notes start with a pick at the 8th fret, first string with the pinky. You're picking that note, then pulling off to the index finger on the left hand, followed by a hammer-on with your 3rd finger, then another hammer-on to the 8th fret, followed by 2 pull-offs. So it's really kind of like a 6-note lick broken into 2 halves. The first 3 notes, the second 3 notes, all together, And you could even just practice that. That makes a great little exercise right there. Really good at building the coordination between the third and the fourth fingers. And then the second one, you'll do the same thing. Break it down slow, figure out what the notes are. And you want to try to get all your hammer-ons and pull-offs to be the same volume, even the same volume as the pick notes. Okay, so if we string them together slowly, we got this idea right here. Another important element with the legato style is the palm muting on the right hand of all the strings we're not playing. That's a real tricky part. A lot of my students have a hard time with this when I first show it to them. Once they learn one of the secrets, which is palm muting, or trying to mute out all the unplayed strings, that really helps tremendously in cleaning up their tone and their sound. So if I was to not palm mute as I played that, you'd hear a lot of extra noise for it like this. And you've got all this other strings ringing in the background just from the vibrations of the guitar causing those strings to vibrate. So I rest the heel of my right hand on the strings, the thicker strings primarily on this one, because we're not playing string 6, 5, 4, or 3 on this lick. So palm muting the strings, the unplayed strings, is a real important part of legato style. Okay. Another cool thing about this lick, you could actually play it several different ways. You could even pick every single note if you like, or you could tap the notes. For the tapping part, you might want to tap the 8th fret with your index finger in your right hand, and then just basically substitute your pinky, get rid of your pinky finger, and then use your index finger on the right hand in place of that. So that lick, tapping-wise, could sound like this. Okay, here it is all together. For this next example, we're going to explore some more hammer-ons and pull-offs, a little bit of the legato style, and a pedal point concept, where you've got a note that reoccurs between changing other changing notes. Best way to understand it is to go ahead and take a look at the example. So let me go ahead and play it for you, and then we'll break it down. Okay, the pedal point idea is where you've got this reoccurring note, and the best way to describe it is just to take a listen to it. So for me on this pedal point idea, it's the 12th and 13th fret on the second string is the reoccurring theme between the other notes changing. So the first set of notes in that first measure are, second set of notes, third set of notes, and then the fourth set of notes, It's like that. So you always got this happening between the... So you got this idea. And a good way to practice those, like we were mentioning earlier, is to do the little micro exercises, break them down into tiny little fragments, and then also do the speed bursts with them too, where you're practicing it 2 times, playing it 2 times slowly, and then a 3rd time twice as fast. So if we try the first set of 4 notes, they'll be like this. Second set of notes. Third set of notes. And then string them together. You could even just practice, actually before you string them together, practice 2 of them at a time. So do the first one, second one, and just get comfortable with that. And then add the third one, and then back to the fourth one, which is the same as the second one. Moving on to the next one, outlines the E7 chord. That's like this. And break that down into the little micro exercises. The first one is this. Next one. Next one. And then the final one, same as the second one. String them together. Okay, and those outline the E7 chord. Then we're back to the A minor chord. And then the next one after that is the E7 way up here. And that one's a cool one to practice too, breaking it down. All these different combinations of your second finger, third finger, and fourth fingers are real good workouts because the coordination between the third and fourth fingers tends to be a little weak on most players. So these really focus in on that and call you to spend some extra time developing them. Another particularly challenging one is the C one, that's a little deeper in the exercise, where you're going like this, down to the 8th fret. You got a big stretch. So practice that in little sections. The first part's very similar to the A minor chord. And then the big stretch. And then the 9th fret and the 3rd string. So you got and that's that. So let's go ahead and try to put it together real slow for you, and then we'll see what it sounds like. Remember, these exercises just to introduce you to some of the elements and techniques using the shred guitar style. What you're to do with these is to practice them, learn the techniques, and then apply them in your own playing, discover how other guitar players might use the same techniques, and just kind of use that to fatten up and color your own playing. Now let's go ahead and explore the next exercise, which checks out sweep picking a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so for this example, we're checking out sweep picking, and particularly we're doing 2 and 3 string sweeps. That's a great way to start with sweep picking because it helps you isolate the technique, which we'll talk about in a sec, and you're only dealing with 2 strings and 3 rather than a bigger 5 or 6 string sweep. So we'll just start out with the 2 and 3 strings for right now. Okay, the idea with that lick is actually kind of 2 put together. So I'm going to break it down for you. And I take that lick and I just apply it to all the arpeggios in the rest of the exercise. So the first measure will describe everything we need to learn for it. The first 6 notes are, and then the latter 6 notes are. So starting with the first 6, we've got this an upstroke followed by a pull-off. Then here's where the sweep comes in. I do a 2-string sweep. A down on the 2nd string, 10th fret, and a down on the 1st string, 8th fret. So it goes. And then follow that with a hammer-on pull-off. So it's. And a great way to practice that is just to slow it down and repeat that over and over again. I can do a little better. Here we go. And then with the speed burst, do maybe 2 times slow and then 2 times quick. And what I mean by slow and fast is I'm not just randomly playing it faster, I'm actually double timing it. So practice with a metronome, which is real important. I'm doing 8th note triplets on the first half when I do it slow, and then on the speeded up part I'm doing 16th note triplets. So in other words, I'm playing 3 notes per beat, then I'm playing 6 notes per beat. I'll try to tap my foot and maybe you can get an idea for what we're doing with that. So it's 3, then 6. So it's the second half of the lick starts with an upstroke on the 2nd string, 10th fret, then a triple string downstroke. In other words, 3 downstrokes on the 3rd string, down on the 2nd, down on the 1st, then your hammer-on pull-off on from the 12th fret back to the 8th fret. So it goes. And we kind of practice that in a repeating manner like this. This is real important, guys, to pick it exactly like this. Upstroke, then 3 downs. So you're going. And then with the speed burst, we're going to do the slow version, fast version. With sweep picking too, this is real important. When you are sweeping, your pick actually plows or comes to rest on the next string after you've picked the first down. So when I pick a down on the 3rd string, my pick comes immediately to rest on the 2nd string like this. And then when I pick the 2nd string, the pick follows through and comes to immediately rest on the 1st string. So that I'm not actually making 3 separate downs like this. See, a lot of guitarists doing that when they try to sweep. It's actually just one big fat downstroke. Where your pick, it's almost like you're strumming the strings or strumming a chord in slow motion. Might be good to practice just the 3-string sweep in a little exercise by itself. So you string the first 6 notes together with the second 6 notes. Now let's make a bigger exercise with that. We'll do it slowly and fast. Then you'll take that same idea of practice and apply it to the next chord. The one we just did was the A minor. The next one's the E7. So you do the same thing. This one really great workout for your third and fourth fingers like this. And then the second half. Yep, played that wrong note. Here we go. String them together. Okay, now here's the whole entire exercise slowly. Now we're going to explore some finger tapping. I'm going to start with an exercise that uses just the index finger on the right hand, and it's going to be arpeggios laid out on just one string, the high E string. So this, although it sounds pretty simple, it's a very impressive little piece. Let me go ahead and play it for you, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so there's that one, guys. Let's go ahead and break it down for you real slow. On the first string, we got an arpeggio that outlines the A minor chord. And by the way, if you don't know what an arpeggio is, it's the notes of the chord broken up individually. And if you're not familiar with what the notes in the A minor chord are, it might be a good idea to hook up with some private lessons from an instructor that can help you with that. That's some real important elements to playing guitars, understanding the components to how the chords and the scales are all built and put together. So anyway, so here are the notes for the first idea. We're starting with a tap at the 12th fret on your right hand. And also too, by the way guys, I'm putting my pick, cupping it away in my hand so that I can use it later on when I perform live. That's usually what I do. Although this piece never does any pick playing, I just out of habit get used to cupping it away in my hand. So we're going to tap with the index finger, and a good idea too is to rest your thumb as an anchor or support on the top edge of the guitar neck. That gives you some support. Great analogy I do with my students a lot is I have them think about when they write on a piece of paper how they anchor their hand on the desk. That gives them a lot of support and allows them to write very accurately and detailed, or if they're drawing something detailed. Same with guitar playing. We want to anchor our hand on the guitar when we're picking. We want to anchor our hand on the guitar when we're tapping. It gives us support and a lot more accuracy. So the first lick, broken down slow, is this. It's a lot of notes. It's actually a 12-note sequence. Let's break it down. The first 3 notes are basically just the Eddie Van Halen inspired version of the tapping, where you tap with your right hand first, then pull off to the left hand index finger, followed by a hammer-on with the pinky. Okay, but to keep a little variety going, I change the second time through. Instead of tap, pull off, hammer-on, I go tap, pull off, pull off. So the first 6 notes are, and then you could even practice that as an exercise in itself. So try that slowly and then fast, like. And then the latter half of the exercise starts with a pull off from your index finger in your left hand, all the way back up the fretboard to the 12th fret and all the way back down. Just kind of go straight up and down. And you can practice that over and over again with a repeating loop like this. And put them both together, you've got this. Okay, then the second lick covers the E7 chord. It's a simple move. We just move the left hand down 1 fret, so we're at frets 4 and 7. We're still going to use the 12th fret on the high E string as the tap note, and we're still going to pull off to the open high E string. This lick's the same melodic shape or contour, just a different set of a couple different notes. It goes like this. So you put them together. And then repeat it. Do that a few times. Then the second half of the whole exercise, I stop pulling off to the open string and I just take the first 6 notes of the sequence we just did and I adjust it to an A major arpeggio, which is an A, C sharp, and E note. And then I'm going to do this idea with it. And then we're going to outline the rest of the chords in the progression. The next one's the D minor. The next one's the G major, followed by C major. Then what comes after the C? The F major chord. It's going to be like this. Then the B diminished. Then the E7 or E major. And then the A minor. And at the tail end of that whole lick, I add this little extra thing that I didn't really do on the other exercises. But at this point, I'm going to go extend the ending a little bit. Then I do each one once. Then I switch the lick to this. This is a little tricky, but it's 30-second notes where we're going to play 8 notes per click, but for right now we'll just kind of think of it as in groups of 4s. I'm going to tap the 20th fret, pull off to the 12th fret, then hammer on the 17th fret with the pinky, and then pull off. So that's the idea. We're going to go. And I'm going to back those two, the index tap finger and the pinky finger back a fret for the E7 chord, do the same idea. So we're going to go. And one time each. And in the final part, I do this thing, I call it double tapping, but it's really not double taps. It's, we're going to tap one note, pull off, and then hammer on the same note we tapped, but this time not with the tap finger, with the pinky finger. And we're going to try to pull each of those 2 fingers out of the way so that the next finger can come down in time on that same note and the same string, like this. get a real fast trilling effect when you do that. It's kind of tricky, but when I tap, I pull upwards, and when I hammer on and pull off, I pull off in a downwards motion, so each finger kind of pulls out of the way of the next. Okay, here's the whole example slowly. Since that's all on one string and it's tapped, it's an easy idea to move to another string and play the exact same frets. It's going to be in a different key with a different set of chords and notes, but it's exactly the same frets. So if I move that same lick to the second string, it would sound like this. I could do it on the third string, on the fourth string. So you can see you could try the same exercise on all 6 strings. It makes a great workout, especially on the thicker strings. It's a little bit harder to stretch when you're on the thicker strings because you have to get your hand into the guitar a little more. And the strings being a little bit thicker present a little different challenge. So maybe the entire lick on the second string would sound like this. And for this final example, we're going to explore multi-finger tapping. That's where you're going to use more than one finger on the right hand to tap on the fretboard. It's kind of like playing the keyboard style. But let's go ahead and I'll play the example for you and we'll break it down and talk about it. So here we go. Okay, for that exercise, guys, I'm using the tap finger, the index finger to tap, and the pinky finger on my right hand to tap. And we're outlining the notes of the A minor chord on the third string. So this particular lick right here, slowly, is this. And for any of you guys that haven't multi-finger tapped before, it might be kind of hard to use the pinky at first, but you just take it real slow and break it down, work on the parts individually. So that's how many notes are in that first sequence? It looks like there's 12. So let's break it down into the first 6 notes, which are these, and just practice that. Go. And then the second 6 notes after goes, starts with a pull off from the pinky finger to the index finger in the left hand. Straight up and straight back down on that string. So the first part, you got second part. Put them together. apply that to the E7 chord, you just back everything up. Everything goes back to the left, 1 fret, except the pinky stays on the E note at the 9th fret. And you do the same sequence. And then you got the first half practice. Latter half. Okay, so the first section slowly is like this. Then we're going to move to the first string and outline the notes of A minor. Again, this time it's going to be different frets. We're 13 and 17 on the right hand, and then holding frets 10 and 5 with the left hand. Again, some of these stretches might be big for you. Just kind of ease into them. Or if the stretching is a little too far and you want to work on this technique, you might want to try moving further up the fretboard and just playing it over a different chord. Like you could even do like a D minor chord up here, frets 10, 15, 18, and 22 for instance. The fingers are a lot closer because the frets are a lot closer. So if stuff's too hard for you to do where it's in the lower register of the guitar neck, you might want to try playing it higher where the frets are a little bit closer together. So anyway, back to the second string, A minor is this one. And then the second half of it. And by the way, when you're tapping with multi-fingers, it's very challenging to prevent the other strings from ringing because we can't palm mute with our right hand. The right hand's used as fretting devices up here on the neck. So we've got to somehow mute those other strings. Usually what I try to do is mute with my second and third fingers of my left hand, slightly dampening the strings while I'm tapping. So here's the second part. And then the E7. Okay, then put that together. Then we go into the A major section, which is this. D minor. And what I'm trying to do on that too is I'm connecting the chords. I'm trying to find the closest notes of that next chord from where I'm at currently on the fretboard. So if I'm doing A major here, and the next chord's D minor, I'm going to try to find the notes of D minor in the same or general location. So for instance, I can just move my index finger on my left hand up 1 fret to the F note, and then my pinky stays on the A note because that's in the D minor chord. And then my right hand moves up from the C sharp to the D, and then the pinky moves up from the E to the F. So now we got this shape for D minor. And then I try to connect to my next chord, which is G, to C major. Then I jump strings over to the third string again for F major. B diminished. E7 or E. And then resolve back to the A, or A minor. So the whole thing slowly is this. Hey, I want to talk to you for a minute about some of the equipment I use. I use these little Fender or Jim Dunlop Jazz 3-picks, the little red ones. They're real thick. They got a nice little point, so it strikes the string very efficiently and precisely. My strings are GHS light gauge, 10 to 46. I've got my action set up fairly low, I do have big kind of jumbo frets that stick up high, so although my fretboard's not scalloped, it has that type of feel slightly because the frets are high. I've got my strings lowered pretty low to the frets though, so when I tap and pick, it's very easy to press down on the strings. Because of that low action though, I've got to pick softly and play generally kind of lightly. If I play too hard or pick too hard, the strings fret out against the frets and they rattle and they make some unwanted noises. So part of the dilemma with playing in the shred style and having lower action and a lot of the distortion is trying to keep that clean tone and playing as light or as softly as you can with the pick. Okay, also too with my amp, I brought in a little Fender or a Roland Cube amp, and I've got the setting set on a heavy metal setting. Gives a lot of sustain and distortion, but it also produces a lot of pick noise. So that's another thing too that a lot of shred guitarists try to eliminate, is some of the clicky sound of the pick hitting the string. That's where if you tap or you're doing legato style, you wouldn't hear any of that because there wouldn't be any pick attack except when you do hit the string. So if you're a player that likes to pick a lot of notes, sometimes that click might get annoying. One way I've found to clean it up is on my back pickup tends to produce most of the clicking noise. But if I use the front pickup, it creates more of a liquidy, creamier tone. Still hear a little bit of the pick attack, but that's something that's inherent in that style, but you can work on it to eliminate, or not necessarily eliminate, but cut back on quite a bit of it. Just try to pick with the tippy tip of the pick, less pick hitting the string the better. And I also combine elements of the legato style too, so it's not all clicking and picking sound. Okay, so from that point of view, just kind of work on your playing and sharpen up the tone and your picking, and that'll be the right way to go. Well, here we are at the end of the video. I hope these ideas are inspiring and motivating for you. If you like these ideas and want to further educate yourself in them, I've got a book version of this DVD called Secrets of Shred Guitar. Comes with a CD and it's got a lot more material in it that I'm sure you'll dig. Also, most of this music was inspired from Bach, Mozart, and Paganini, so I encourage you to look up those composers and some of their music and apply that to the electric guitar. Keep those metronomes clicking.